Welcome to Amanda Spann's Minimal Viable Podcast, the show that gives you a real and relatable look at the world of tech and entrepreneurship from industry all-stars. On this episode of MVP, we'll be joined by award-winning financial planner, coach, and speaker Dominique Broadway. We'll explore the vision behind her company, Finances Demystified, and a democratization of financial advice for millennials, entrepreneurs, and creatives. MVP is brought to you by Simplero, the all-in-one software for online entrepreneurs. Most digital coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs are using 7+ online tools that still don't meet their needs. Simplero reduces the headache of product management by allowing you to host your mailing list, online courses, membership communities, marketing automation, and digital products all on one platform. It's my personal go-to tool of choice for selling my ebooks and courses, and I think it's pretty affordable, simple to use, and easy to get started. So if you like to experience less tech and less stress when selling your content or products online, check out Simplero at simplero.com. That's SIMPLERO.com. Now let's start the show.
Hi, Dominique. Welcome to MVP. So happy to have you. I know you're jet setting, so thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to meet with me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm done jet setting for at least the next 2.5 months because I'm about to have this baby. So I can't. Actually, today was technically the last day I could fly. So I got my last trip in last week to Dallas, and now I'm done.
Does it feel a little bittersweet, or are you kind of looking forward to just kind of sitting still and resting and enjoying the rest of the pregnancy, or how does that feel?
You know, it's weird just because I'm so used to traveling so often, and now I think what's weird is knowing that I actually can't travel. So I think it kind of freaks me out, you know. As entrepreneurs, we just don't like to be told that we can't do something, but it's for a bigger purpose and a greater purpose. So I'm really excited. It's nice to just be quote unquote nesting for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think times like this when we're kind of forced to sit still. They teach us so much about ourselves, and we get a glimpse into the things that we've been missing because we've been ripping and running so much.
That's very true. And also, I would say it shows you, you know, how much work you've been putting into your business that you can sit still and still see like the fruits of your labor, which is priceless. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, again, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I want to kind of dive into everything you do as like a financial expert, as well as, you know, your program Finances Demystified. In addition to kind of you just being an influencer, because I think back to like when I met you in D.C., and I think we got introduced through Kat. And I remember you being one of the first people I could recognize or identify as someone who was kind of positioned as an influencer or expert in their space, especially in the business space. Because, like, you know, we have so many, like, beauty influencers and fashion influencers. But, like, now we're kind of entering into an era of business influencers and, like, micro-influencers and things like that. And I think you were onto that very, very early. So I want to kind of take a second to, you know, give our listeners a little bit more of your background on, like, how you got started in the finance space. And then, like, well, how did you know that you wanted to go, that you needed to make the leap from, like, corporate finance to helping, you know, millennials and entrepreneurs all around the world manage their finances?
Yeah, so I started, my background on how I got started. So I went to Bowie State University, historically black college in Maryland, majored in banking and finance, but I always knew, literally since I was in high school, that I wanted to be a stockbroker or a financial advisor. And I knew I wanted to be in the stock market, dealing with anything stock market related or investing related. So I majored in banking and finance, ended up getting an internship at one of the top wealth management firms in the world at the time, UBS Financial Services, by the grace of God, because I did not have the GPA or any other requirements that they needed. I just kind of weed my way in there. And basically that's where my kind of, I guess, financial career kicked off. So interned there for a summer in New York. They offered me a full-time position. I accepted the full-time position, so I technically started working there full-time before I graduated because it took me an extra semester to graduate. And during that extra semester, I also bought my first condo and basically just kind of commuted back and forth to Bowie from Bethesda, Maryland, to finish my degree. And so worked at UBS Financial Services for a few years, was working with high net worth clients, so clients that had 10, sometimes 20, sometimes more million in investable assets, which basically means that's just how much they had in their investment accounts. And we would do wealth management, trading and investing, from basic trading like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, to alternative investments like oil, energy, real estate for these clients. So that was pretty much how I got started. I kind of hopped around to a couple different firms before I made the leap to become an entrepreneur. But that was pretty much how I basically got my start into the industry.
And like, well, at what point did you know that you wanted to leave? Because I mean, you kind of just said like, well, this was kind of your dream to go into the finance and investing space. So at what point did your dream change?
You know, it changed, I don't know, maybe 6 months in. Like, it was pretty quick. It was pretty quick.
As soon as I got there, I was like, oh,
yeah, basically day 3 of the internship. No, it changed pretty early though. I've always been an entrepreneur, like from the age of like 6 or 7 years old, selling bracelets to helping my dad with his vending machine company on the weekends when I was in middle and high school, to co-founding a computer educational technology company with one of my good friends in high school, where we taught kids how to use computers because they weren't teaching kids at the time how to use computers in school. So I've always had businesses and been an entrepreneur, and I knew I wanted to be one day. I just didn't know when that would happen. And so basically after working at a couple of these firms, I just got really, really bored. Honestly, I had, was managing money for super wealthy people. I had all my licenses, and I was just like, I don't want to do this forever. Like, this was cool for a few years, but like, I don't want to do this forever. And also, too, at the time, a lot of my friends kept coming to me asking me for financial advice because, as I mentioned earlier, I had bought my first condo before I graduated college. And my friends were like, what the hell were you doing that we weren't doing? Like, we literally all moved back home, and you literally like moved to a condo. And I was like, oh, you guys weren't like thinking about this stuff and saving? And they were like, no. So I realized there was this huge gap of financial information. So people kept asking me for help. I had to keep telling them no, because at the firms I worked at, you had to have a lot of times $500,000 to $1 million minimum just to become a client. And that was when I was literally just sitting at my desk one day, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And at that time, I was working at my mentor's firm. I was working at my mentor's firm, and it was a Black-owned firm. It was an awesome opportunity for me to take over, and that was what he wanted, me to kind of take over his firm. When he planned to exit and retire. And I was there for about 6 months, and I was like, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm just over it. It was weird. I just didn't want to do it.
Was that a hard conversation to have with your mentor? Or did he kind of he or she kind of see it coming?
He didn't get it. He was like, what do you think? I was like, it wasn't a hard conversation for me, because I'm the kind of person, once I make my decision, make my mind about something, I pretty much just do it. I'm already like, there was no talking out of it. I had already decided that I was ready to go. He thought I was silly, and he told me, I'll never forget, he was like, you're never, because at first I was like, I'm going to help like other people that don't have tons of money understand and manage their money. And he was like, you're never going to make money helping people that don't have money. And then, of course, that only just like put more fuel in my fire. Like, now I really have to prove him wrong. And so it wasn't a hard conversation, but it was, to me, it really confirmed that it was time for me to go. So I literally quit. I gave a 2 weeks notice, basically, but quit. And I gave a 2 weeks notice, but technically, when you're in the financial space, they're scared you're going to steal their client information, so you have to leave that day, basically. So that was it for me. And so I ended up leaving, and that's pretty much when I just dove 100% into entrepreneurship and started my company.
So did you know when you quit, at the time you put in your notice, like, did you have a roadmap laid out for what your company would look like, or did you just know, hey, there's an opportunity here, there's a market here, and I'm going to service it, but I don't know what that looks like yet?
I had no clue what I was going to do. Honestly, I had no plan. Like, I literally had no plan. I remember leaving there, driving home, like, oh, my God, what am I going to do? Because I literally had no plan. Like, I knew I kind of wanted to do something in personal finance, but honestly, I was so annoyed with the financial services industry because it is such a, what's the word I want to use? It's just such a tainted and corrupt industry, to be honest. So part of me was just like, I'm over all things finance, like throw the finance degree away, I'm done, right? And so I knew I really wanted to get into real estate. So I actually went down to Baltimore and put contracts down, 3 different houses. They were all, and I wasn't super wealthy or anything, but they were all like, the houses between the prices of like $5,000 and $12,000. And I had put contracts down, 3 different houses, and like literally the contracts fell through on all of them. And it was weird. And I was like, okay, why is this not working? And then I had this other idea. I was like, I want to open a alcohol-infused cupcake company. So I started toying around with that idea, realized I had no real recipe for cupcakes. And it's like, okay, I really don't want to do this. I'm not a baker. I like to eat them, not cook them. And then one day I was literally driving in my car because I quit my job around in May. And now by this time it's like August. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I'm still trying to figure this out. And there was a commercial on the radio, and it was like, for sisters only, like next weekend. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start my business, like start my financial education company for sisters only, because that's my target audience. So I literally called my friend at the time, one of my good friends, and I was like, hey, starting this company next week, can you help me? And he was like, sure, what do you need? So he made me a one-page website, business cards. One of my good friends came down from New Jersey, and she helped me work the booth, and that was literally how I started Finances Demystified. So I had about 95 people that signed up to become clients. I ended up making about a third of them clients. And then that was pretty much how things just kind of took off from there.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like you kind of took the risk of faith, and it just kind of worked out as it came, right? Huge leap of faith. Right. So could you tell us a little bit more about like what Finances Demystified consists of now? I mean, I imagine this range of services vary greatly from when you first started to what it is now, but like as it was and as it has evolved, like what is it? What does it offer? And like who is it ideal for?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed so much even from like when we first met. Because when we first met, I think I was still doing like one-on-one financial coaching, and that was probably really like the breadth of the services, really just that one-on-one financial coaching, and helping individuals with their finances, because that was my background. But now it's completely evolved, and I think that's what's interesting about being an entrepreneur, how it, your business can naturally evolve, and sometimes it's good to just listen and see what people want, and kind of let it go where it needs to go, instead of just saying like, okay, I only want to do this and this only. Like my business wouldn't have grown the way it has if I stuck to what I thought I only wanted to do, which was help, just really help millennials with their finances on a one-on-one basis. So now Finances Demystified is, not a totally different company, but sometimes it feels that way. So now we offer online courses, digital products. We still do a little bit of one-on-one. I work with a few one-on-one clients every month, not many, because we're not really promoting their services, but if people can get in, I usually will take them on, but we're slowly dwindling back. So by the end of this year, we'll probably completely cut back with our one-on-one program completely. So we have a little bit of one-on-one. We do financial online courses, digital products. And then I do tons of public speaking. We have a physical book. And then also working with, major brands to amplify their financial literacy messages and curriculum. So that can be either, Finances Demystified, the company, going in and actually helping them build curriculum, which is what I was actually in Dallas for, finalizing a deal with Toyota for that, helping them create their financial curriculum. Or it could even be working with other major companies like a Charles Schwab or Experian or Capital One to amplify their financial literacy messages. So it basically turns into this, financial education, almost financial marketing company in a way as well. So it's been pretty exciting.
It sounds really exciting. And I mean, I kind of wanted. I mean, I'm tempted to go a lot of different directions with it. Like I kind of want to know like the thing like. I kind of want to get financial advice for like the millennial and like entrepreneurial audience, but I'm also very curious about like you in building like kind of a financial marketing company. I think that's a really interesting spin on things. Because people have so many products out there and there's so many financial consultants and advisors. So, like, what kind of prompted you to go the financial marketing route? And this is something, like, I actually kind of struggle with personally because I do a lot of startup coaching. And sometimes you just don't have the bandwidth to meet with everybody one-on-one. A lot of the people who need your services don't always have the capacity or the money for them. But you do want to help them, and you do want to provide a service that can meet people where they're at, right? Even if they have to kind of take a leap or, you know, move around some things to make it happen. Like, you just want to provide something that is feasible and accessible for people. And so I'm curious to know a little bit more about, you know, how you decided to kind of lean towards the financial marketing route. Was that something that was also organic, or did you have an aha moment with it, or like did a brand come to you and you were like, oh, this makes sense, I can replicate this with other brands, you know? What did that look like for you?
It was definitely something that happened organically, where it was a situation where brands just kept reaching out, like literally, and they just kept reaching out because we had built an audience. You know, we had built the audience that we had the business for a few years. You know, I was, you know, am and considered a leader in the personal finance space, so brands just started reaching out, and they started offering me these large numbers, and I was like, okay, like there's a market for this, right? And so it was, you know, started getting like these 5-figure contracts to help people with their financial content and their financial marketing. And I'm like, this is fun. And I also realized that I loved doing it. And it was interesting with my background. When I was actually in high school, not high school, college, I did marketing for Starbucks and a lot of just other companies in the area. I was like the local, like the regional brand manager for some of the experiential marketing campaigns. And so marketing was something I was always really passionate about. I just didn't minor in it in college because it would have took me even longer to graduate, so I didn't do it. But I realized after working with these brands that I really enjoyed it. I really loved like the whole negotiation process of the contract. I really loved being able to create content with these brands and then being able to basically use their money to educate my audience and their audience, but on their dime. You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, we need to replicate this. But it was one of those situations where one brand reached out, and then it was like 1 month where like 4 brands reached out. And I'm like, okay, this is like turning into a thing. So we didn't even have to start pitching companies. Like, we literally just started pitching companies because we were having so many companies coming in that I realized that actually I really actually enjoy this more than working with my clients one-on-one. I love my one-on-one clients, but they can be stressful sometimes.
I totally get it.
And a lot of times people don't listen, and it's like, okay, you know what? We're gonna have to cut this back. And this is what I actually really enjoy, the whole process, from the sales process to the content creation process. And so that's why I decided just to kind of scale and let that, you know, kind of take its own path.
So, like, outside of building an audience, I heard you mention that earlier. What can people do to start positioning themselves as kind of an expert, an epic expert in their space? Because there's so many, like, people. Everyone has like a domain of genius, right? And there's so many influencers and experts that are popping up that are owning niche spaces, but people have a really hard time, it seems, really carving out that audience, and then secondly, kind of owning that domain authority in the space so that they're attracting the things that they want, as opposed to having to go out and seek them or pitch them or, you know, continuously spend money to get the results that they want. So is there any advice? Is there any additional advice you have outside of building an audience on positioning yourself as like the thought leader in your respective domain?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it happened very organically, and I just have really started to kind of take a look back to say, like, well, what did I do? I'm sure I was doing something to build up that, you know, notoriety, but it really happened organically. Like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't really know what an influencer was. Nobody was really talking about influencers, right? And now I'm considered, you know, a top financial influencer. I won Best Money Expert last year in the whole country. Like, all these awesome things happen, right? But even taking a look back, I think I was even doing little things back in the day, like using services like Help a Reporter Out to get a bunch of mentions and to be featured in a lot of different publications. And then from there, also just really just always sticking to personal finance. So if anyone thinks of Dominique Broadway, they think of personal finance, right? You know, and that's it. Well, some people say, they like, oh, you have great hair, whatever. But
you do have great hair.
Like,
I do remember meeting you thinking she has a really cute haircut. Like,
yeah, people always like, you have great hair and you dress really well. And I'm like, thanks. But at the end of the day, I'm known for like personal finance, right? And so I think a lot of times people, that's where they mess up too. They're trying to do every single thing. And I think that I have literally, like you said, we probably met maybe 5 years ago. I've always done the same thing. I've always been in the same space. I haven't switched off to try to go do nails and go do hair and I've always done the same thing. So I think it's really important to stick to what it is that you want to be known for, and then just make sure that everyone that you encounter knows exactly what you do. And that way they're able to tell someone else, and that way when opportunities pop up, you're the first person that comes to mind. But I think in addition to that, like using, like I said, services like Help a Reporter Out was really great back in the day. When I was just getting started, I believe they're still around. But I think in addition to that, just putting yourself out there, like even with speaking engagements and stuff like that. Like now I get paid to speak. I typically won't speak if I'm not getting paid unless I'm just really passionate about the event or mission. But back in the day, for years, probably like the first 2.5, 3 years, I spoke everywhere for free. And I use that content to get more speaking engagements and for more people to know me. So I really took a lot of time to make sure that people knew exactly what I did. Now, at the time, I didn't know that I didn't really know what I was doing. I just know that from a marketing standpoint, everyone needs to know what you're doing. So I just knew I needed to be everywhere all the time. And then it kind of turned into me using all of those opportunities turned me into this financial influencer, if you say. But I think that's what a lot of people don't want to do. And people are like, oh, how did you get there? I'm like, I invested years, years to get here, oftentimes not being paid, right? And so, sometimes you have to start there. But now I don't have to do that anymore, right? I haven't had to do that for years. But I think it's really important to invest and really put yourself out there and be in front of people and get in front of brands and get in front of audiences so people know who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. I feel like, every overnight success I'm seeing or like people are seeing right now have been putting in work for like 10 years, And I see it so much. Overnight success. Right. Like I see it so much, in particular, like with my friends out in like LA and on the coast and things like that, like those who have been working in like in the entertainment industry in particular, like, I'm starting to see people blow up and I'm like, you have no idea these people have been working at this for like their whole professional career. And it's just manifesting for them. Like, in order for them to get to this place, they had to sow all of these seeds, and those seeds just don't come to harvest all at one time.
No, and they take a lot of time.
Yes, incredibly long amount of time. And I think, the internet has kind of tricked us into thinking that everything comes fast and quick and it's overnight success, and it rushes us into believing that we should achieve things faster than we want them, but they're just going to come in their time and when you're actually ready for them, right? And then sometimes you're not ready for them, but it is that time where you just need to rise to the occasion to get ready for them, right? And it just kind of pushes you to the next level of yourself. But yeah, I kind of want to dive a little bit more into more of the finance side. Now we've kind of talked about you as kind of a brand and as an influencer. But what are some of the most common like pitfalls you see in working with your, coaching groups and with those who are participating in your courses, whether it be actually on the financial side or if it's like the discipline side, like if it's just like the personal side of like how they're operating their life, like what are you seeing in particular in kind of the Black millennial space as pitfalls that we commonly fall into?
Yeah, it's still a lot of the same things. It's so frustrating still, like back in the day it was keeping up with the Joneses, and now it's keeping up with the Kardashians and trying to keep up with all your friends on Instagram, and like people are just trying to keep up with each other, and I'm like, all y'all are broke, but y'all just don't know it. It's like no one has more money than the other. And it's frustrating. And it's frustrating, too, because a lot of, millennials, and even especially black millennials, they're the first in their family that have made, 6 figures, and they have these great jobs, and maybe they're working at tech companies or whatever, and they're, like, spending every single dime that they make. And so that, to me, is still, like, just the biggest pitfall I'm seeing with millennials. They're just trying to keep up with everyone else. They're getting apartments they can't afford. They're getting cars they can't afford. They're eating out every day. They're taking trips all the time, and they have $0 in their name. So to me, that's the biggest thing I'm seeing, and it's super frustrating.
So how do you curb that? How do you curb that culture and like really get people to understand the urgency of, living within their means?
It's hard. I think it's almost honestly like when someone decides they want to stop doing drugs, or someone decides they want to stop smoking, or someone decides they want to lose weight. Like they have to not necessarily hit rock bottom, but they have to make a mental decision themselves, right? And I think no matter how much we preach and say, don't do this, don't do that, 9 times out of 10, when I see people want to make changes, it's like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. I'm tired of robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm tired of going out to eat with my friends and praying my debit card gets accepted. They just have to get tired. And I think a lot of times you can't change people until they make a decision that they're ready to make a change. And for some people, it's like when they hit that magic number of 30, or when they get engaged, or they're having a baby, or whatever it may be. But for most people, it's when they make a decision that, hey, I want to change, and I want to change now, right? So, unfortunately, that comes later for some people. For some people, it comes earlier. But they have to make that decision on their own. It's hard to force someone to make those types of lifestyle changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So when they do, decide to make that change, what is that kind of process like onboarding onto Finances Demystified? How do you transition them and get them kind of enrolled in this process to kind of change their life?
Yeah, so I think, it depends on where people are, right? So I think the first thing that most people have to do is really just accept the fact of where they are. And I always like to say, kind of looking at everything with your name and a dollar sign and saying, okay, this is where I am. This is how much debt I have. This is how much I bring in. This is how much, student loan debt I have, whatever it may be, and really coming to grips with where you are. And for a lot of people, that's hard. That's why they avoid their finances for so long, because they are scared to really accept where they are. So I think the first step is we just everyone's literally pull all their bank statements, all of their everything with their name and a dollar sign, and get a snapshot of where they are, understand how much money they're bringing in, what their expenses are, and that's really the first step. And then from there, it's just figuring out what your goals are and what is it that you're hoping to accomplish? And then we take whatever current financial situation you're in and use that to help you reach those goals. So if that means you want to pay off credit card debt, or for some people it's like, hey, I want to travel, but I want to travel in a way that when I come home, I'm not broke. I've literally known people who've gone on trips and came home to eviction notices. That's not okay, right? So, it's kind of making sure that we can leverage your finances to hit whatever those goals are, but creating a strategy where you're not okay, I can't go to brunch for the next 6 months, because I know me personally, one of my favorite things to do is brunch, right? So, if someone told me to stop brunching, I'd be like, get out of my face, that's not happening, right? So it's making sure we have that balance where you can still go out, you can still hang out with your friends, but you're still preparing to put yourself in a better financial situation.
Makes sense. That makes sense. So what's next for you in Finances Demystified? I know you're preparing to be a mommy, but, I'm curious to know, what is the next phase of your company?
Yeah, so, my biggest focus right now is definitely having this baby next month, which I'm really excited about. But outside of that, with Finances Demystified, we have some really exciting things coming down the pipeline, working with more major brands throughout the rest of the year, I'll be doing some work with some fintech companies that I'm really excited about as well. And that's pretty much it. I mean, just kind of continuing to grow what we've already built, being able to help more millennials, entrepreneurs, and creatives, and then really just, trying to create technology to make everyone's financial lives a lot easier.
Well, that sounds great. We're looking forward to it. And so where can people find you and look for these updates for you at?
Yeah, so you can go to the website. It's just financesdemystified.com, and we're also Finances Demystified on Instagram as well. And you can also follow me on IG, just Dominique Broadway. We have all the links in my bio there as well, and we're always posting, updates in both of those places. So that's how to find us.
Okay, well, perfect. Well, so I have one last question for you. It's our listener-submitted question, and it's from a young lady named Olivia. She says she just started a catering side hustle, and she hopes to expand that into a brick-and-mortar restaurant. She read in some of your previous articles that you yourself had issues with managing money when you first ventured into entrepreneurship. So, what tips can you offer a new entrepreneur surrounding managing their money?
Oh, I love that question. So, I always talk about how broke I went, a year and a half in becoming an entrepreneur, literally house went into foreclosure, car got repossessed, got all that stuff back. But it was a huge eye-opener for me because as an entrepreneur, a lot of times we just throw all of ourselves into the businesses and we'll completely ignore finances. And so I think one of the first things, a recommendation I would make is don't do that, right? Don't get so absorbed into your business that you don't think about the numbers, and think about it as a business and don't think about it as just this passion project that you're doing. And that's kind of what I was doing, I just want to help everyone, and I wasn't making enough money, right? Because I was so busy trying to help everyone. I wasn't charging enough. I didn't have a plan. Like I told you, I started my business in a week, so didn't make a strategy in a week. I just kind of started it, right? So I would say definitely just don't ignore your business finances. As soon as possible, separate, keep your personal finances separate from your business finances. Have the business checking account open. Get an accountant if you can. In addition to that, I know she mentioned that she's doing it as a side hustle, which is great. I didn't have opportunity to do my business as a side hustle because as a financial professional, you can't have any outside business activities. So I would say keep working, your full-time job until you feel 100% comfortable going into your side business. And I always say, just if your side business can bring in income 3 months in a row that replace the income from your job, then you should feel comfortable to take that leap. So that would be kind of my recommendation there, just making sure that, like I said, you're not ignoring your personal finances and that you get your business to a point where you feel that it can financially provide for you and your family or you and whatever before you make the leap from your full-time business.
All right, well, that's great advice, Olivia. I hope you're hearing that and that you keep that in mind. Good luck with your catering business. And Dominique, we thank you so much. Listeners are really going to enjoy this, and I know a lot of even our past guests have kind of cited their issues with their financial journey and having to kind of learn as they went along with entrepreneurship and ignoring that portion of things or not even knowing that they needed to be attentive to their finances as they ventured into entrepreneurship. So I think this will be right on time for a lot of people and be really helpful.
Great.
All right, well, thanks so much, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to MVP. If you'd like to hear more from me or our guests, visit mvpodcast.substack.com for exclusive content, updates, and announcements. And if you love the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or follow us at The Amanda Spann at MV Podcast. Thanks again, and see you next week.